Oh, hi Maxine. It's been a while since I showed her in a video. Look at how big she's getting. Look at how short her tail is. I mean, like, relative to other cats. It's okay, it just makes you that much more adorable. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm really excited to be trying out the new Excel Eye Planner palette. So Excel came out with a new line of eyeshadow singles that they call the Eye Planner series. Along with that, they released 2 limited edition palettes that are pre-filled with 4 eyeshadows already. So you cannot purchase any of these individual shades, unfortunately, after the stock of these limited edition palettes are sold out. Now, I've reviewed Excel a couple of times on my channel. I actually haven't purchased or reviewed anything new from Excel in a while. And the reason for that being, if you've been subscribed to me for a long time, you might remember me saying in an older video, one of my biggest complaints about the brand was that they just never seemed to update their aesthetic past the mid-2000s Gyaru kind of vibe, which there's nothing wrong with that. You might even argue that nowadays it might be time for that aesthetic to make a comeback, but I just felt like they were long overdue for kind of like a design remake, renewal. I do think we got a little glimpse of that with the gradation blushes, the erratic blushes that were released last year. I actually went out and purchased all of those and did a whole swatch video right here if you want to check that out. But yeah, aside from that, particularly like eyeshadow wise or just makeup for the eye area in general, I felt like their packaging was just so tired and overdone. I was just over it. I was sick of it. I kind of just made a decision to not buy any more Excel until they came up with something new. Lo and behold, that day has come. I love it. Before we dive into the eyeshadow palette, I just feel like I need to mention this because this issue is something that's going to be important to me and my considerations when purchasing makeup in the future. So I checked my little, cruelty-free booklet from the JAVA organization, Japan Anti-Vivisection Association. And it says right here, Noavir Group. I don't know if you can see that or read it, but they are listed under the category of companies that don't test in Japan, but they sell overseas in China. China mandates by law that all of the cosmetics sold in their country is tested on animals, meaning that Excel products which are being exported to and sold in China are probably engaging in that activity as well somewhere down the line. So that's really unfortunate. I mean, at least they don't test in Japan. Truth be told, I'm not really sure how this is going to impact my view of or my willingness to buy from Excel in the future. This time around, I actually just completely forgot to check the booklet. This was a total impulse purchase, and this was expensive too. I'll put the price up here in the corner. It was $27.50 with tax, which is, again, like department store pricing on a drugstore brand. It's crazy. But you know what? Honestly, I have to hand it to them. I might just have to forgive them this one time because holy crap. This is exactly what I was talking about, the kind of modern revamping of their image that I felt they needed to do. Really beautiful palette. So you see there's like a beautiful little mosaic design on the front and it's kind of a matte material. There's a little clasp closure at the bottom here, so you just press this button and it opens up. Plastic protector, appreciate it as always. And here we have the stunning, in the pans at least, for shade. So this is the Eye Planner palette in 01. It's called Bloom Road. Okay, and I'm reading right here on the back, there's kind of like a warning for usage. It's warning you to not put too much pressure onto the eyeshadows when you're swatching them or trying to pick up color, because that might cause them to crack or break. So just keep that in mind. Use a light hand when dealing with these shadows. Okay, I just want to swatch on my fingers first to see what this is all about. Ooh, these have such a pretty flushed quality about them. So obviously I think all of them are kind of different formulas. Let me see what it says on the box here. So the pinky silvery shade right here is a rich type formula, and then the sheer blue topper shade is called Dazzle type. The last 2 pink and mauvey brown shades are called fluffy type. So those are 3 different formulas. I think there's another one called the shiny type as well that was not included in this palette, but if you look at their single eyeshadow offerings, there's yeah, shiny, rich, fluffy, and dazzle are the 4 formulas in total that they have available. Okay, I really have high hopes for this performance-wise actually, so let's just dip in. I'm gonna start off with this shade on the bottom right actually. This is called Pink Wall. So I just applied my Anastasia eye primer and I'm starting off with Pink Wall right here. Usually I would start off with like the lightest shade or the more, you know, neutral beigey shade, but I really want this pink color to show up as vibrantly as possible. So I want this to be the first to touch the eye primer. And then afterwards I'm gonna add this on top of the pink and try to fade it out that way. So I like the way that it applies so far. It has that nice flushed, you know, watercolory effect to it. It's not super pigmented, but it's even in the color distribution, which is the most important thing I think for eyeshadows. It has a little more kickback than I was expecting, but that's probably just because I use a heavy hand anyway. Even though the instructions specifically told me not to, I just can't help it. Not that much fallout to its credit. Okay, now I'm gonna go in and deepen the corners of my eye with this brown shade down here. Actually, this is more like a deep plum color, not a brown. Do you see how much that's like lifting up in the pan? Just from me dipping my brush in there. It's kind of powdery, yeah. I don't know how else to describe that, but I'm gonna put that in the corners. I'm gonna blend that into my outer corner for definition, as well as a little bit on the inner corner too, to create that halo spotlight effect. I gotta tell you, there's nothing more universally flattering, in my opinion, than a halo eye on pretty much any eye type or any type of eyelid fold or lack thereof. You know, in my case, I'm always talking about how difficult it is to work with a half crease, and while it is tricky for sure to get the hang of this technique in the beginning, if you just practice enough and get the hang of it, it's like so intuitive and automatic. This is my default technique these days. Okay, that blended pretty nicely actually, and I really like the gradient effect that it created. There's definitely, I think, even though you see a lot of powder kick up here, there's definitely a lot of grab to this eyeshadow formula, especially if you lay down a nice sticky primer like I have. The eyeshadow is pretty much going to stay where you put it, so it's not going to be like, you will have to work a little bit to get it to blend, but then once it is blended, it's never going to, like, the powders from the different shades are not going to migrate around everywhere and turn into a muddy mess. You can clearly see the difference in shade between these two on my eyes, even though it's covering such a small surface area. Like, you can see very clearly where the lighter pink transitions into the plum. That is pretty amazing. I'm just gonna add a little bit of the lighter pink on the bottom lid, just to mimic the gradient on the top. Okay, now I'm just gonna take my finger into this blue top coat. Yeah, this is like really sheer. I don't know if the blue is actually gonna show up, but I'm gonna pat that. Ooh, it actually does. Wait, hold on. Can you see that? It's like a sparse coverage, but it's definitely casting that iridescent blue violet shimmer. Let me try and actually use the brush that came with the palette. Sorry, I keep forgetting to say the names. This is Nemophila. Wikipedia says that this is a type of blue flower, so I am gonna go with that because that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I feel like you can definitely control the intensity a lot better with a brush for these types of top shades, because whenever I use my finger, it kind of just like, all of the product then ends up sticking to my finger, but it doesn't transfer to my eyelid that well. But with a brush, you can literally like layer up as much as you want. This is not my favorite kind of formula. I'm not a fan of top coats on the whole, regardless of if it's Western, Japanese, Korean, because they all kind of have this same like annoying quality of, I call it permanent hard pan in the pan. And then also, like, even when you try to lift it up, they lift off in these little, I don't know, like the powders, the individual powders bunch up into these really chunky, uneven chunks. They just like lift off and then it just like falls out everywhere when you try to apply it on your eyes. I don't know, it's just not an easy application experience. Okay, this might be one of the better top coats that I've tried in a while, to be fair. Definitely a lot better than some of the top coats in a few K-beauty eyeshadow palettes that I've tried recently. Oh my god, I actually love that so much. Oh, I didn't use this shade up here yet. This is called Bouquet Toss, like tossing the bridal bouquet at a wedding.
Okay, girl, see you tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
Night-night.
I feel like I don't really need it at this point. The look is already kind of done, but just for thoroughness sake, I'm gonna add some to the top. And then like the inner corner. This shade is bomb, you guys. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Tiny Shell by Addiction. Here, see? You can even use it as a face highlight, and it's gorgeous. Okay, so I think I'm gonna go off camera and finish the rest of my face because I don't even have foundation on or anything. I was planning on only doing my eyes actually to make it like just a quicker video, but now that it's all on and I see that it's really quite like colorful party, I don't know, it just reminds me of like anime girl party vibes. I kind of want to see how it would look with a full face of glam, so I will be right back. Okay, so I'm back. This is the finished full face of makeup using the Excel Eye Planner palette. I also used a little bit of Pink Wall for my blush and it turned out really stunning. Okay, I used a really light hand, but even though it's an eyeshadow, I think it worked really well because it's already a really diffused kind of effect that the formula gives in the first place. So basically what I'm getting at is this is pretty much a low-key face palette, you guys. There's not a single shade in here that I feel is extraneous or doesn't pull its weight. All of them work together perfectly in harmony. Some people might not like the contrast that the iridescent blue top shade brings to the rest of the palette, but I personally really love it. I mean, I love any type of a blue or violet top coat anyway, not just on my eyes but on my lips as well. You know my weird obsession with blue tinted lip glosses and things like that. Probably because it just reminds me of like the late 90s and mid 2000s, which I kind of feel like that's the vibes that this whole look is giving me right now.
I think I did it again.
But if you look closely at my face, it's definitely a more updated version of that. Like the textures are much smoother and more modern. I'm in love, you guys, honestly. I mean, I better be for the price point, but this is just like the perfect palette. I really want to go out and get the other limited edition palette now just because I'm so impressed by this. Like the texture, the blendability, the color story, the versatility, everything is just perfect scores across the board for me, honestly. The only thing I would do differently from what I did with my application today as the first impressions is that I think it is best to go ahead and lay down this lightest shade first over here and then just work your way up in intensity with the two mauvey shades. And then finally, of course, as the topper for the center of your lid, I would use the blue last. Because I noticed that when I went in with the pinky highlightery shade, like afterwards as the last step, I did kind of end up covering a little bit of the gradient from the lighter pink color that I laid down first. And I didn't really like that because I really wanted the pink gradient to fade up a little higher, but it still looks cute, and that has nothing to do with the palette. Obviously, it's just my own little note to myself there about my application technique with this. Final comment, do you remember how I said that this shade up here really reminded me of Tiny Shell? Now, I haven't used Addiction products in a hot minute, like almost 5 years, I think. There was a time when I was really obsessed with that brand. Like, I almost went ahead and bought their little, I don't know if they still have this, but they had at one point on their website, you could buy the entire set of all of their single eyeshadows. It came out to like $2,000 US or something crazy like that. So I almost, like, there was a point in time when I was obsessed enough with Addiction that I was actually somewhat on the verge of buying that entire set. This was pre-COVID times, okay, pre-COVID paycheck and everything.
It ain't safe, it ain't safe, it ain't safe, it ain't safe.
I ended up coming to my senses and not going through with it, but maybe that's why I subconsciously avoided Addiction for all these years actually, because it kind of does to you what the brand name says it will. Like, it gets you addicted. So that was kind of genius on their part. I have to hand it to the brand creator for naming the brand Addiction. You don't even really give the customers a chance that way, right? With a name like that straight out the gate. But yeah, my point is these eye planner eyeshadows by Excel are giving me really, really heavy Addiction vibes. So as a disclaimer, I don't remember how exactly the Addiction eyeshadow formula performed because it's been so long since I used one of them, but I'm definitely having a little bit of a deja vu with these Excel shadows. Even the presentation, not these obviously because they already came pre-packaged with a palette and everything, but if you look at the presentation of the single eyeshadows that they sell, they're packaged in these very simplistic clear plastic cases, and it really reminds me of the Addiction eyeshadow single packaging as well. The Addiction eyeshadows are a little over 2,000 yen a piece right now, I believe, which is insane. So if you're looking for that same kind of a vibe but at a more affordable price point, 1,000 yen, which is granted half the price of the Addiction ones, but it's still expensive for a drugstore brand, I would encourage you to check these out because I'm really, really impressed so far. And I know that I shouldn't, but I feel like I know myself, I know my ways, and I'm probably gonna end up picking the second color variation as well. I'm definitely gonna use the fact that it's limited edition to justify my purchase, so don't look to me as an example of what to do, kids, okay? Okay, that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for joining me as always, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!